you know.
All right.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Being John Malkovich.
Hi. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So it looks like all our panelists are here. We don't have Susan Jennings just yet, but I do see a few attendees popping up. So thank you all for joining us. We just have a few people here. Maybe we should wait a couple minutes because I think more people were planning on coming, if that's okay with everybody. But I'll just say for the attendees who are joining us right now, I know you are not, so I'm new to Zoom webinar. You're not able to speak, so we don't see video of you right now. But if you have any questions or comments, you can, if you toggle to the bottom of your screen, it will say chat or Q&A. And so feel free to send us messages through that. And I think you can send a message to all the panelists, and then you could also send a message to everybody, all the people watching and panelists. So feel free to use those features. So I don't know, do we want to give it a couple more minutes here? Okay. So, and again, thanks everybody. We're really lucky to have some representatives from some different local schools here. And I think I've heard a little bit about some of their projects, and they're doing different work, and but it's all working toward the same cause. So.
Well, you know, Lauren, I could get going with the introduction maybe, and then Rachel can talk more about the process of it, if that's okay, just because it's this is kind of for the context. Welcome to all of our participants, and thank you very much to the panel. We were planning to have this as a live panel as a part of a March conference that we were doing. It was the third of what we've called the Growing Green series. Tecumseh Land Trust has a partnership, a regional conservation partnership that is partly got federal funding. Altogether, we have about $3 million for purchasing conservation easements with the aim of improving water quality, and everything that we do to do that happens to also improve soil quality. There's also conservation money that's a part of that project. And that is through the EQIP program that people with farms might be familiar with. One of the things that EQIP can pay for is helping to figure out how to transition your farm to organic. So a continuing theme for us also is how can we make our local food networks more resilient, and how can we capture more of that local dollar so that it bounces around in your local community. Somewhere between 4 and 9 times the dollar spent locally on local food will be respent in the community on somebody's rent, on other aspects of their food budget, on their childcare, whereas whenever we're purchasing from national corporations or multinational organizations, that dollar doesn't have the same effect. And so not only do we protect farmland, but we really want to make sure that farming becomes viable economically and sustainably. So Agraria Community Solutions is the Arthur Morgan Institute for Community Solutions is a major partner with us on this project. And the purchase of the property now we call Agraria was actually really the pivotal event that set it off for us. There was so much interest in around Yellow Springs and preserving that property, and especially really in Community Solutions buying it. And they really got a groundwell of support to buy that property, to really properly restore it. It was a piece of farm ground that was pretty beat up, and they're doing everything they can to make it truly resilient and to regenerate soil. So they've been a great partner. This March conference was going to be our third one that we had done together. We were very disappointed that we had to cancel it, But as far as context for us, we've still been working on local food together, and actually, you know, at a faster pace in our local community in and around Yellow Springs than ordinary, because the obvious food insecurity, especially of older people and young people, has become very, very obvious. Interestingly, we've also seen some of the local food operations. One of our other panelists has a local grass-fed meat operation. He has basically been able to move all of his restaurant sales to direct customer sales, and is selling more than he ever did before at this point. So, you know, we see how local operations can sometimes turn on a dime. Our bigger systems have got some drawbacks. So we're learning a lot from this. We won't let go, you know, and I really appreciate all of the panelists joining us. You all already had heroic efforts underway to bring your kids better food security and better knowledge of food systems and just nature. But at this point, it's everything has just stepped up so dramatically. So I really, really appreciate your time on so far a pretty nice evening. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Krista. Rachel, do you want to jump in now and talk about the format for this evening? Also,
Yeah.
I see Susan Jennings is now joining us, but why don't you go ahead, Rachel?
Okay, so the overall format here is, well, I'm going to be introducing myself, and Lauren's going to be introducing herself, and Lauren and Krista work together at Tecumseh Land Trust. So Krista just gave a little bit of an overview of some of the work that we've been doing together, but if y'all want to give an overview on what Tecumseh Land Trust is, and also Lauren, if you would like to, when we're introducing the panelists, you know, say their names and where they're from to everyone, so that there's an overview. Overall though, so after we introduce ourselves, each presenter is going to present, and after each presenter is done, then we'll be accepting questions. So if you have questions, put your question in the Q&A section, and we'll have time for a couple questions after each panelist. And if we don't get to your question, we may have time at the very end, although you can also put your question in the chat, and we can get back to you later as well. After each panelist has presented and there's been questions, at the very end, they're also going to be all like having questions for each other and having a discussion about their projects. So, and then that will be all. And I think we're planning on ending here at 7:30. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss Agraria. So Agraria is a regenerative farm in Yellow Springs, and many of y'all that are here have heard of us. So we're focusing on a lot about soil health, and we've done obviously a lot of work with trying to rebuild our local food system, as Krista said. I personally have been really interested in farm to school programs. I realize that some of the attendees may not be sure what a farm to school program is. I did my senior project at Antioch College. I graduated last year, all about farm to school programs. And how it looks like in the whole like macro agro-food system, as well as in I did a little study on Yellow Springs, trying to see what potentials there were for a farm to school program. So I've been working with Donna First for about a year now. So, so just to give a little quick overview, farm to school programs have three main elements. There's the procurement, which is the local purchasing. Now, local is relative, and we'll probably hear that more from the panelists. There's also the hands-on experience of school gardens. So kids really learning about like where food comes from in a really hands-on way in that regard. And then there's also the educational piece. Now, schools don't have to meet all three of those things to be a farm to school. To have a farm to school program, you just have to have even just one of those things. So as we hear from the panelists today, we'll be hearing the variety of things that they do at their school districts, and every school district has their own dynamics, has their own opportunities and challenges. And so part of our discussion today, you'll hear from the panelists discuss that they're going to describe their farm to school projects. They're going to describe their challenges, how they are working to overcome those challenges, what their immediate next steps are, as well as what changes they've had to make due to the COVID-19 crisis and how they were looking to meet the needs of the kids during these times. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Lauren, and Lauren can introduce herself and introduce the panelists.
Great. Well, I'm Lauren and I work for the Land Trust, and I think we should just go ahead and get started here. So our first panelist tonight is Lauren Marlowe from Cincinnati Public Schools.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Lauren, and I work for Cincinnati Public Schools in the student dining department. So at Cincinnati Public, we do a bunch of different farm to school programming, but I'm going to speak more to the procurement side that Rachel just described and how we use local produce specifically in our food service programs that we serve to the students. So at CPS, we have a passion to serve healthy food to students and then to also support our local economy. So we serve, I'm going to share my screen, hopefully it works, and I have some pictures of different ways that we serve produce in our schools. So we have salad bars at every one of our schools that have like rotating different fresh fruits and vegetables every day in elementary and in secondary schools. And then we also have a different fresh fruit and vegetable of the week. So each week it'll be a different fruit and a different vegetable, and we serve it on the salad bar, and we also will roast it on one day. And so here you see some pictures of different vegetables that we've roasted to offer like a different and new fun way to serve vegetables, to try to get kids to try vegetables that they might not ever seen and try it in different ways and in different unique cooking opportunities. And then we also have a fresh fruit and vegetable program, which offers every elementary kid like a little 1/4 cup serving of fruit or vegetable 3 days a week. So we try to introduce fruits and vegetables to kids in multiple different ways. So since we are serving so much produce, we really wanted to support local farms, but we're having finding many obstacles in procuring with local, especially small farmers. So we were having problems finding farms that were GAP certified. With the way that school procurement works and menu building, it was hard to meet the farmers' growing timeline. They had to grow something, but we didn't have a menu and bids out in time for them to grow it. Getting produce delivered to 63 different schools that we have, that was a difficulty because most larger school districts have a central warehouse where they can process all the food to go out to their schools, but CPS is a little bit different in that we cook in each school, so we didn't have a warehouse that a small farmer could drop a bunch of produce at. They had to deliver it to 63 schools, and that was an obstacle for a lot of small farmers. And then we also needed produce to be further processed, so like cleaned, and then like lettuce needed to be chopped, broccoli needed to be chopped, and then a lot of small farmers didn't have capabilities to do that. So to combat those obstacles, we partnered with a local distributor, and we had to go out to bid for a produce distributor. And one of the things that we required is that they were able to work with small farms and then to be able to further process this produce for us to use in the schools. And so we were lucky enough to be able to partner with Creation Gardens, and they have a local plant in our city limits, and they also had the capability to clean and process the produce into a way that we could use it. And so with their partnership, we were able to coordinate with many different small farms, and then we were able to use more of the produce because we could, if it was a higher price, we wouldn't be able to afford it. We were able to use some of it and then fill with a cheaper non-local item. So we were able to incorporate some, or if a small farm had some of the vegetable for us, but they didn't have enough to supply all of our schools, Creation Gardens was able to fill in the rest of that order with a non-local item. So it really gave us a lot more flexibility And Creation Gardens was also able to work with a bunch of other customers who were striving to serve more local food to be able to meet that demand for farmers, where if we had to change the menu, we couldn't use something, another customer was able to pick it up so that that farmer wasn't left with a bunch of produce. So with their partnership, we were able to spend almost $232,000 just last year on produce. And we hope to increase that with the second year of working with Creation Gardens and working with farmers to grow produce for us to use in schools. Some of the stuff that we've been able to use like all year long, we've been able to get apples and onions and potatoes, and then in the fall we've gotten asparagus and cucumbers and grapes and melons. So we've been able to offer a wide variety of different produce that our students have really enjoyed. So of course we've had some challenges with the pandemic. So instead of cooking in all of our schools, we moved to packaging meals in our warehouse. So we went down, usually we serve around 25,000 students, and it went down to 3,500. So we were able to do that in our warehouse, but everything had to be individually wrapped. So we couldn't process like any open food in this warehouse. So we worked with Creation Gardens to process the produce that was already in the warehouse for us to serve in the schools, and they were able to wrap that for us and then deliver it to our warehouse. So we were able to get fresh produce out to our families during this hard time, which was awesome. We're so glad we were able to do that. We were also able to continue our fresh fruit and vegetable program. They were able to package, there's a cup from Creation Gardens they were able to package, and then we were able to hand that out to all the elementary schools for the families to take home, and they really enjoyed that. We're really thankful to be able to give that to the families. We had to switch to a different supplier to get some of our produce. We had to, in order to be fiscally responsible, we had to switch over to receive DOD produce and able to use up our USDA food, since we weren't able to use it in ways that we had planned before the pandemic happened. So we were able to get, they had a wide variety of IW individually wrapped produce items that we pack at every single one of our meals that go out to students, and we're doing that through August 14th. We're going to continue to provide meals for students at 23 pickup locations at various schools throughout the city. So we're still in constant communications with Creation Gardens, our distributor for next year, and trying to work with farmers the best we can to use the produce that we planned on using, but it's going to be a different environment. We know that salad bars are going to be closed, and we'll have to individually portion all food. So we're working with them to get creative in how to offer this fresh produce, and I think students will still be able to choose it, and if it's packaged and easy to go and already cut up, I think they're going to be really likely to eat it. So we're going to continue to work with them and work with our partners to provide fresh local produce next year. That's all I have.
Lauren, it looks like you got a couple questions I'm seeing in the chat. Someone asked, is Creation Gardens a nonprofit?
No, I do not believe so, no.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Lauren before we go to our next panelist?
She was also asked by Melissa, where are the vegetables sourced?
Our local vegetables are sourced from farms in Kentucky and in Ohio.
Can I ask a question as well? How did your program get started? Because when I think of like a really developed farm to school program, like we were all thinking of Cincinnati as well. So I'm just curious if you could tell a little like short story about how the program got started in Cincinnati.
With procurement specifically, it started with the adoption of the Good Food Purchasing Program, or I wouldn't say it started there. I think it's always been a goal of the district to purchase local foods, but with the adoption of Good Food Purchasing Program, it definitely sped that up and helped build partnerships to be able to accomplish deeper goals. So we're in our third or fourth year of Good Food Purchasing Program, and so in in working with that program and then other community partners and agencies, we've been able to help source, to come up with ideas and kind of combat these obstacles that I talked about.
And who, just we have one more minute, and who kind of got the good food purchasing program rolling? Was that from the community or from parents? How did that start?
It came from the board, so I'm sure that it was a part of like community advocates, parents, like a mixture of that, and then the board kind of gave us the directive to go ahead and adopt it.
Well, great. Thank you, Lauren, so much. Oh, Donna, you're on mute.
I just thought of another question just as I was listening to you. When you said that your food comes from Kentucky and Ohio, is that like within a 50-mile radius, or is it a closer radius?
Yeah, we're right on the border, so it's like a 200-mile radius from the city. It's considered
Okay, 200-mile radius. All right, thank you.
And I'm seeing one more question in the chat. It said, are your cafeteria workers part-time or full-time?
It is a mixture. We have over 300 employees. Some of them, our full-time is considered 5 hours a day. So we have from like 8 hours a day down to 3.
All right, well, Lauren, thank you so much. We, next up, we have 2 speakers here from Benjamin Logan's Elementary School, and Bruce Smith, who's a 4th grade science teacher, is going to get us started.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm a 4th grade science teacher at Benjamin Logan, and I'm also director of the Logan County Land Trust, and the Land Trust plays a part in at least one aspect of what we're doing. I guess we're going back to about 2017. The health district did a needs survey, and the results were that there was a disconnect between people and their food, and there were families that were eating fast food meal after meal after meal, kids that didn't recognize vegetables. So the health district called together a committee. It was made up of people from the hospital, the farmers market, our school, other schools were invited. The Full Circle Food Collaboration was a result of that. And through some discussion, it looked like our district was already doing some things. So we were became the model, so to speak. And we sought some funding. We were able to, the local hospital has a foundation. Through 2 grant rounds, we've been awarded funds. Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, we've gotten money there. The local Logan County Education Foundation, the Rotary. And I'm going to try and share my things were just becoming unstable when I tried to get ready, and we're going to see if I can make this. So I'm sorry if it, just as an example, the I hope that's visible. The Sugary did for us, and that's a place for the elementary store, its tools. Once we organized, kind of the first thing we thought we ought to do was take a survey. So we developed an attitudinal survey, and we're having kids at 3rd grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, and 12th grade take that, and we're going to collect that data from year to year with the hope to be able to see that we're having some impact, and that attitudes are changing, and that the kids are becoming more familiar, and that they're with vegetables, and they're maybe having it in their diet. So I mentioned the Land Trust. The Land Trust had partnered and decided that we ought to have an environmental science club. So we the Environmental Science Club started even before this with putting some pollinator plots and some raised beds in. And here's an example of one of that was actually our first pollinator plot that's outside the high school. And the kids worked after school in the ag shop under adult supervision. We've got a lot of volunteers. One of the gentlemen there is the president of the land trust, not a teacher. But we have people that are willing to help, and so they put together the beds, and now we have 3 beds at each school, and Ryan will talk a little bit more about those. We have a Martin house that was put in, which kind of is a nice, and a bluebird trail. And again, that was something the Environmental Science Club did. They learned about inoculating logs to grow mushrooms. So we have shiitake mushroom harvest available to us. These were just done this spring, so they're not ready yet. But this is all stuff that they're producing and that they're going to consume or market through local farmers market, which again, Ryan will talk to you a little bit more about that. So each of the buildings has 3 raised beds to use and 2 pollinator plots. We put a beehive, a top bar beehive, out in the land lab. I'm going to see where those photos got to. We had a harvest of honey, which is used by, well, the teachers have already sampled it, decided it was pretty good. But the family consumer science teacher is going to use that in her program in the food tastings, which again, we'll get to in a minute. But we put that in the land lab in a prairie area where everybody knows where it is. So we're cognizant of the allergies, and we have it in a safe spot. And, so far, that's been a good part of the program. I had one more photograph of that, but I don't see it. So Ryan's going to talk about a little bit more of what we're doing. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm Ryan Kearns. I'm a 2nd grade math, science, and social studies teacher at Benjamin Logan Elementary. I'm also on the board of the Logan County Farmers Market. I work with the Logan County Food System Initiative, and I'm the director of education for the Food System Initiative and the Farmers Market. My personal market garden is Truck Patch Naturals, and we do a lot of workshops, educational outreach down here on our property. And we're actually going to be kind of mirroring some of the practices, the biointensive ag practices that we have in our small scale here at our farm at the school. So a lot of the practices are going to look the same. It'll be 0-till on all of our market beds. We'll be regenerating soil. We're doing that in a permaculture area to start off with. We have an area that was under conventional ag on the northeast corner of the campus. And there it is right there. You see the picture that Bruce is putting up. So that's our permaculture area. We've got nitrogen fixers in there. We're working with nature rather than against it to regenerate that soil. We've also got a fully climate controlled greenhouse where we can start all of our plants. Bruce mentioned log inoculations earlier. We can also inoculate ground with ground spawn to create natural fungal compost in the soil. And we're doing that in 2 raised beds right there next to the that fully climate controlled greenhouse that we've got at the high school. And we'll be pretty much the only ones using that greenhouse now. It was erected in 2004, and it really just kind of sat there for several years. And it's going to be, fantastic for us. And I think Bruce will be able to touch on how we might be able to use that greenhouse in response to what's happened with COVID-19 and how that may impact the way that our students learn throughout the school year, not just over the summer. We are using cover crops. We've put cover crops in the raised beds that we have at each of the 3 buildings. So the cover crops are there to help rejuvenate the soil after we've planted. We kill off our cover crops either with a ground cover kill, occultation, or we've got some of them that we can just pull and go in and plant right in behind them. Pretty rich soil that we've used in our raised bed programs due to the fact that our campus is about 25 years old, give or take, and it's still being regenerated from when it was a construction zone. So we are kind of working to go back through and mitigate those problems that we have with poor soil by either using cover crops, going through with like permaculture, what we've got there at the northeast corner of the campus, and also using occultation, which is killing off the sod layer, the O horizon basically, is being fed by what's in the sod itself. So we're breaking down the grass, the wild violets, the bindweed, and all of that we have. There you can see a picture of occultation. And that's our market garden bed that was supposed to be started for this spring. We had plants ready to go into it. And then of course the kids were called away from school. In addition to our outside efforts, each classroom teacher has been offered an AeroGarden for their classroom. We've also worked in conjunction with True Leaf Market and Johnny's Seeds, and we've been producing microgreens on campus throughout the course of the school year. When the weather doesn't really allow for us to do much outside, the kids have actually, the youngest kids in our district have been the first ones to feed the rest of the district. So you're looking right there at some sunflower shoots that were grown, and I believe that's maybe Bruce's room. But we've also grown in all the way down to kindergarten classrooms, and kids have even grown plants for their parents and taken them home and started their own gardens. So really empowering the kids in that way. We have a high school patio area as well, where kids can kind of go to and relax. We've got teachers that are teaching while we're in session out there, and we've got several raised beds in that area as well that have been producing food since last year.
A couple of other features to make this publicly a little more, make public a little more aware. There's signage all around the campus, and it is a campus setting, so we've got that advantage of having there's one elementary, one middle school, one high school, and we're just across the bus circle from each other. So it lends itself to collaboration and access, for the most part, to all the parts of it. The permaculture area is a little bit farther away. So we have signage. This kind of explains the whole program. There was I had another example of the sign, I thought, but oh no, that's the bees. But at any rate, we did put those up for the pollinator plots to explain their need and their importance, and that was all done. The signs are all marked with our logo, which was a student-generated logo. We've got a neat little Gardens Growing Minds logo, and also the Mary Rattan Foundation logo on those. Another part of it, the high school consumer family and consumer science teacher has organized food tastings. So using stuff that we've grown, and not entirely, but when possible, but some unfamiliar things. So the idea of using, I'm drawing a blank here. I can't remember. Was kohlrabi was one that not too many kids were familiar with. She organized these tastings, and her students came over and presented a dish to every grade level. It's been done at the elementary, the middle school, and the high school, and the plan is to continue that. Our 10th grade language arts teacher focused a lot of her writing curriculum around food and various aspects of food, and her kids were out in the greenhouse this winter, starting things from seed. So really, it's everything, as Ryan said earlier, everything from kindergarten through 12th grade. We have the opportunity for everybody to be involved. As far as challenges go, we had to find the funding. There wasn't money from the school, but through the grant funding, we were able to do this. There is some, just as always, resistance. The garden. That garden with the market garden is adjacent to the elementary, and was concerned, well, it'll be weedy, it won't look nice. You know, the campus is kind of a manicured lawn approach, and sometimes people have a hard time adjusting to changes to that. But you know, there wasn't really a lot of resistance. Just where are things going to go and how are they going to be maintained? You know, making sure the bees are not where they're going to be a problem. Some of the environmental factors that were obstacles Ryan talked about, the soil, this being a construction site with construction fill, so the raised beds made that a non-issue. We have a tremendous amount of wind. The tarp, you might have noticed, was held down with pallets. We didn't think we needed too many of those. And the first weekend after we put it down, the tarp was wrapped around that tree. A 50-mile-an-hour wind came through and picked it up. And so every one of those tarps is necessary. So there are some of those things that are just things to consider and to find a solution to. So, Brian, do you want to?
Yeah, we did bring in some folks to speak to the staff when we had district meetings at the high school a year and a half, 2 years ago. We brought in it's Adam Sorensen, who had done a lot of work with kids and talking about, you know, the mental health benefits of actually nurturing plants. Those kids that maybe haven't been nurtured so much themselves in their lives, having an opportunity to nurture something else and you know, to really take care of it and become involved in its life cycle, and then to be able to consume that food was a really powerful thing for a lot of kids and adults as well, you know, who just haven't ever really been connected to their food. This gave them an opportunity to do that. So we were able to, you know, cooperate with community groups. We were able to cooperate with Adam, have him actually come in and talk to the staff. And we've never demanded that anyone help. We've never asked anyone to help. We've always just offered it out there to anyone who wants to come. There's no obligation. You don't have to spend any set amount of time. And anybody who wants to come out can simply help out, do a little weeding. If you want to do a little harvesting and take something home, we've always left it open to anyone, and we've never asked any questions about it. And thus far, it's been really beneficial to do it in that way, and that's really garnered us a lot of support. Just letting people know that you are welcome to this, and you know, come out, help, be involved, and then just take what you want, what you need, and that's been really good. And it's really helped us to be well connected to everybody within the district, from the superintendent, you know, all the way down to myself and to Bruce and everyone in between. The ground staff were the first ones that we went to. We didn't speak to anyone in administration before we spoke to the ground staff. We stopped them, we talked to them, and you know, face to face had a 5-minute conversation, and they were all for it. And this was the same ground staff that in the past had turned down projects such as this. And when we went to them first, I think that they really appreciated that. And we've always gone directly to people. We've never triangulated. It's just always been transparent, and people have known what they were going to get. So we've really kind of mitigated our problems in doing things that way. So, you know, now next steps are just going to be, we've got some fungal compost that we can amend our soil with, and we can plant possibly indoors. I'll let Bruce talk about that a little bit. And then we can just continue to prepare our ground and have the main market garden be ready to go for next year's 2021 market season.
So, as Ryan said, I talked a little bit about the changes. I don't think we mentioned the whole concept of the market garden came from kids at the high school. They said they wanted to grow vegetables and be able to share those with the community. So they really were the ones that got that started. And since we couldn't do that this year, next year, the Logan County Farmers Market had a virtual market the first month, I guess it was, Ryan, right? About a month. So you ordered online and then went to a drive-through site, and your purchase was packed and ready. and there's a possibility for that to continue. So even if there are some disruptions next year, the kids still might be able to do their market gardening. I showed this is some salad mix that was planned last year. The idea was, we'll get this going in the spring, and then the kids will be able to have at least one salad before they leave. This year we didn't do that, so we put some things in. We have right now potatoes and onions and tomatoes, so that when they come back, we'll have some stuff to harvest. And that was kind of a change that was necessitated by COVID. As far as what are some of the challenges in adapting, I guess the main thing was in the one slide you saw that the student doing the inoculant cap mushrooms. We went to the county health director and got guidance. There had been some guidelines issued to all the school districts, but we were asked to just talk to him directly, and the plan was to have a couple of kids there to be outside, to have masks, and it was determined that that wouldn't be a problem at all. So a lot of it, in conclusion, is just knowing who to talk to and how to get support. As Ryan pointed out, the grounds people are pretty important, and you don't overlook them. So by talking to them early and getting direction, it really made things a lot easier. And I think that's all we had planned to say. Any questions or?
Melissa says, nice to see that kids were some of the drivers for these projects and the efforts are agriculturally seasonal. Chris asks, have kids' parents helped out with your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. We held a meeting and parents, kids, staff were in attendance, and that we laid out what we were doing, and people signed up to help out. So yes, without question.
And even going back a year and a half or so with log inoculations for the shiitake mushrooms, right up through just parents that are coming out and picking up their kids, when they're doing environmental science club, and a lot of them are involved a little bit more extensively now with the school. We've even got substitute teachers that have come in, heard about what we do, and have decided to keep coming around the district and have gotten involved.
So David asked, in Logan County, who tends the gardens, tends the beds during the summer, and who supervises?
Well, it's last summer it was staff and some students. The reason we had the meeting to get some more participants was to organize that. Of course, that's something else that COVID kind of put on hold. So right now it's mostly staff with some families. But last year it was there were a lot of families who came in, and as Ryan said, when we cut off, we did several cuttings of the salad mix. So you come in, water, take some home, and there's more in a week for the next family to come in.
And I serve as the lead on the gardening project. So there are several people that are facilitators, and then of course we've got other staff leads that are leaders of the program, but the program is multifaceted. So I focus on the market garden, and I'm kind of the point person when it comes to what are we going to plant, when do successions go down, when is it okay to harvest, how are we taking care of weed pressure, insect pest damage, that kind of falls back on me.
Great. Well, I think we are right at the time for the two of you. So let's keep moving, and we will have time for more discussion at the end. So Donna first is our next speaker, and she is the Director of Student Services and Operations for Yellow Springs Schools.
So I am going to just say a little bit about Yellow Springs and then have our food service director, Michelle Martin, talk a little bit about some of the programming that's possible in Yellow Springs. Right now, I would say that Yellow Springs, as far as a farm to school program, as far as what's organized under that umbrella officially, would be considered fledgling. But in reality, I think there are a lot of things we do in Yellow Springs that has just not been officially organized under the umbrella of farm to school. For example, there have been local school gardens. In the middle school, they did a hydroponics garden. There's through health and through collaborations with Agraria, looking at some of the education around nutrition and gardening and sustainability, local food sustainability and systems and how it affects them. And I think our kids and our families are very aware and interested. So I feel like we have a lot of breakout activities with our project-based learning, but there hasn't been that organization to pull it together as a farm to school program per se. And I think a lot of folks probably everywhere assume that farm to school means that all of the food in the cafeteria is coming from a Yellow Springs farmer or a farmer maybe in the next town over. For several years, we've had, I think in our requests, one of our preferences for our local food to come from, I think it's 50 or 60 miles away whenever possible, whenever financially possible. Of course, being in Ohio, some things don't grow in season, in the school year, happens in the winter. So we have that issue. But I think there have been a lot of projects that I think we're in a great spot to do a little bit more with that. We've had a lot of changes. We've had change in our food service. This is our first year with our food service management company. We contract with a food service management company to provide food in the cafeteria. And beginning this past school year, we have the nutrition group. And that's Michelle, who I'm going to introduce in a little bit. Yeah, she's waving. Michelle is our food service director through the nutrition group. So they would be having the staff who prepares the meals, and they would also be doing some of the procurement and then turning that into us. So that's kind of how the setup is in Yellow Springs. Some larger school districts might not have a management company. They might staff and do all of that on, underneath their own school. So we have a lot of different, in all of the areas, I would say now that we've really enjoyed working with the nutrition group, and I think they have a lot of ideas, and I think Michelle's going to talk a little bit about their farm to fork, some of the programs and options that could be available for us, which could be exciting. I think one of our biggest barriers is we have had so much transition. Previously, we worked with a different company, and there wasn't anyone sitting on a panel like this to get ideas. So I think this is kind of the perfect storm for us to be able to do some of those things. I think that the staff already does some of these things. We would be able to, that jump to make it a little more organized, to grow it into a multifaceted program over time is definitely a possibility. So I think our barrier is just not having a little bit of turnover and not being able to keep that momentum going to get it together between the food service company and then maybe some of the curriculum offerings. But our project-based learning, I know teachers have done several different things that could parlay into a bigger program. And we're always looking for local experts and for resources, and a group like this allows us to kind of tap into Agraria and some of the local farmers. Now that we have our food service company who is interested in collaborating, Michelle does, I don't want to tell too much what she does, but they offer snacks to kids to get them to learn about different vegetables and different ways to eat vegetables and to try things. So some of those things I've been hearing from the more developed programs, I'm really encouraged because I see those things happening or starting to happen here in Yellow Springs. So I think it's really encouraging to me. And I think, of course, the pandemic, COVID-19, has halted some of that or made us reroute some things. We've had our food delivery and we focused on that. We have a great staff who has volunteered, and then now we're continuing that. We continued it when the order, the stay-at-home order, was extended. We moved it to more of a school staffed food delivery, and everybody volunteered to continue through the end of June. So we'll be delivering, and our buses deliver that, and we deliver it outside of Yellow Springs to our open enrolled kids as well as our kids within the district. So so it was a big effort, and nobody even questioned going in the summer. And the same with the nutrition group. They have been there packaging up meals for us, and then we worked with the food pantry to deliver the items for dinners. It's usually non-perishable food that can be done each week for dinners. But those things, I think, some of the uncertainty, it would also be the challenge as far as how we're going to start school, and what are we going to do around that. But I think everybody's working with that kind of uncertainty. So those would be the big things. I think that one thing we were looking at next year, I had talked to Michelle a little bit about this. We know that we can offer food in our cafeteria if it was from a school project. Some of our project-based learning, like some of the gardens. I heard someone mention that they have gardens and then they offer those in their fresh fruit and produce bar, which we do have one of those. And I know we're going to have to do that differently because of COVID, but I don't think we're at the point of doing produce because we don't have a garden, but I could see us doing herbs. Michelle and I talked a little bit about that. Maybe starting smaller with some herbs that the kids can grow to offer and to use. And I think some of those things would be wonderful. I think we will explore a little bit more what we need to do to make sure that's okay to offer to the kids if it was a project where the kids are growing it, just some of the safety and regulations. I know it's a little bit different because the kids can make it and offer it as part of their project as opposed to buying it from a supplier. So I think doing an endeavor like working with a supplier like Cincinnati would be a little bit different. I think it would take a little more time and a little more investigation to build up something like that. But I think in the short term, expanding some of those gardens and looking at something that we could offer and tying the nutrition group in with some of the teachers for their project-based learning would all just, if we got those pieces in place, I think some things would take off immediately. So I would love for Michelle to jump in and tell us a little bit about some of the things. Yeah, she's over there laughing. I'm excited about some of their farm to fork and some of the things that could be discussed for Yellow Springs. So I'm going to have her share some of that with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Martin. I'm with the Nutrition Group. We are a food management company from Pennsylvania. Some of the projects that we're doing right now, well, before school was out, was that we're big on getting the kids educated because, like Bruce alluded to, there's a lot of children who do not recognize a vegetable. They see a vegetable as being a French fry or something that isn't quite as healthy as what it should be. Our goal is to do a lot of scratch cooking. I have some very good cooks, thank goodness, that can give the kids pretty much what they want. With Yellow Springs, we find that there's a lot of kids who are vegan and vegetarian, so we try to accommodate that as well. So with the Farm to Fork, we go into the classrooms. We offer the kids, we have a thing called Wellness Wednesday. We offer the kids samples of different types of vegetables that they may not have seen before. It can be anything from a plantain to, you know, something very local, radish. You know, how many kids have seen a radish? You'd be surprised. So we try to offer them all sorts of different types of fruits and vegetables so that they can get to know them and not be afraid of them, because many kids are actually afraid to try something new. We try to make it really fun. We try to make it really, we have stickers, you know, it's a fun environment for them to try something in. Like I said, some of the challenges we encounter are that the students are afraid of trying new things, you know, especially the littles. They see it, they're like, but I don't want it, but you offer them a sticker and they might want to try it then. And overcoming some of our barriers, we work with a group called Premier Produce One, and they do have a lot of local fruits and vegetables. Most of their seasonal fruit is within a 60 to 100-mile radius. So, but then of course we do have the non-growing months where we have to get it from elsewhere. What I envision is, like Donna spoke to, is seeing the kids being able to grow some of these herbs and produce some of these things that they can add to their meals. So like as toppers, you know, and to sample different things and to learn, you know, about the growing cycles. And I would love to work with that. I think that the more kids know their food, the more kids have touched and seen and grown their food, the more they're going to want to eat that. And that's a big thing that the nutrition group really looks at. The coronavirus has definitely changed a lot of things. We have always offered a very beautiful fruit and salad bar, and I think that's very enticing to kids. And unfortunately, I do believe that next year we're not going to be able to do that. It'll have to be capped, but we're going to do our best to still make it pretty and you know, entice the kids to eat their fruits and vegetables. So that's really it's really about all I have. It's just as a company, we just really try to encourage these kids to get in there, to eat their fruits and vegetables. I'm right there all the time saying, I don't see something green on your plate. Let's put something green on there. So they need to try it. They just have to try it. And I think the more, like you all have been talking about, the more that they can touch and they can feel and they can work with these foods, the better off they're going to be.
Are there any questions for Donna and Michelle?
I've just asked in the chat box, is there any local sourcing for like meat or cheese or other foods?
For Yellow Springs, we do source some local cheeses. They are unfortunately from Pennsylvania because that's where our main supplier is. And all of our dairy is locally sourced.
Michelle, I have a question for you. So you work for a group called the Nutrition Group, and then you also mentioned Premier Produce One. And I'm
Yes.
wondering, do you kind of contract with the Premier Produce One, or are you, how does it work?
Premier Produce One is a local vendor that we work through. Every school can choose their own vendors.
Okay. And is there anyone else from the nutrition group that works in Yellow Springs with you, or are you the only one?
Well, all the staff there is staff of the nutrition group, all the cafeteria staff. And then I do also have a district manager and a regional manager that are close by.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Well, we'll have more time to talk later. So then, if not, let's go on to Sherry then. And Sherry Chen lives in Springfield and has been involved with multiple different food initiatives, one of which she served as the farm manager under a farm to school planning grant in Springfield City Schools, and co-founded Springfield, Ohio Urban Plant Bulk, which is now working under a farm to school implementation grant with Springfield City Schools and Community Solutions. So Sherry, please add to that as you'd like, but thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks. Just a small correction. I apologize that our implementation grant is finished. Actually was finished about a year ago. And we, yes, I'm not a school employee. We are a community group that's Springfield, Ohio Urban Plant Folk. I'm going to refer to it as SOUP. That's its acronym. It's myself and three women who are actually neighborhood residents of the South Side. And we do focus on food security in the South Side of Springfield, which has somewhere poverty rate approximating about 50%. You know, historically disadvantaged, et cetera. So under the first farm to school grant that I was farm manager for, that was mostly community based. As you guys all know, the farm to school grants are really flexible in what they allow you to do. And there was a lot of work done community wise and some exploration within the school district. So then Community Solutions in the schools and SOUP wrote the farm to school implementation grant. It had several focuses. One of them was school gardens, focused on Southside schools. One was to start a small community garden. One was to explore putting some local, at least getting one local product into the schools. And because we were in a system that at Springfield City Schools, a long time ago, I was an employee there, and we've done some work there educationally, and it is a highly stressed school district, both financially and academically, and partly because of the amount of the numbers of students who are living in poverty. I will mention also that this past March, South Springfield lost its last grocery store. So it was a food desert before the last Kroger moved out, and now there's no grocery stores in the South Side. So we're kind of all working and dealing with a lot of that. So what we did was that we approached 3 Southside schools to say, would you like a school garden? All 3 of them initially said yes, but it was our prerequisite going in to say, if you do want one, then please find and identify a garden coordinator, because we really wanted these spaces not only to be individualized to the school and what the teachers wanted, but also for there to be some ownership there, because our group's way too small to come in and maintain these. And so 2 of the 3 schools that we went to responded. One of them, I know they wanted to participate, but when I walked in the school office the first time to talk to the principal, I just, I went, wow, there was a lot going on and it was pretty chaotic, and that's not a reflection on the principal, that's a reflection of what she was having to deal with. And they just weren't able to get back to us. And so the community garden that we started is actually across the street from them. So in the 2 school gardens that we started, one of them had a courtyard, and they said, we want to make this more of a teaching space. It was just mowed grass. And so we, in cooperation with them, we dug out the 4 corners, put in perennials. And under this grant, what was really fun about this grant is that I think when you're in places of high stress, you have to do a lot of problem solving, and some of it you know ahead of time and some of it you don't. And as a product of the work we were doing, we ended up with a really neat partnership with a local business called the Plastic Lumber Store. And he's been a phenomenal partner with us. And so actually the benches that were constructed were of plastic lumber. So it's really kind of cool that we found a sustainable resource, a recycled resource, and one that's working well with us. So we did that at one of the schools. That was just an elementary school. We also, at the second school was an early childhood center. And we went to them and said, what do you want? And I need to mention too that Springfield City Schools, I'm going to say within the past 15 to 20 years, had undergone reconstruction of all of its schools. So all of the places where we're looking at school gardens and working there are prior demolition and construction sites. So we're looking, when they say that if they want to raise food, we're going in with raised beds. We have lead testing that's available free through the health department, but even if the soil tests okay, we still put in raised beds if people are going to eat from it. So at the preschool center, they wanted things to be more experiential. So they have a space where they can gather, and they wanted 2 boxes just full of gravel so the kids could dig. They wanted 2 boxes that were just full of dirt so the kids could dig. And then we had 4 other boxes that we did. I think there was a little perennial garden, a little flower garden, a little vegetable garden, and a little herb garden, mostly with plants that could be experienced, easily. And so then I want to go to the fact that the one school was not able to participate. And so we did a small community garden that is still in process for several reasons. One is, because as we were making it, as we started to plant some of the perennial things that were going into the garden, we rely on, volunteers, and someone mowed down the first perennials that we put in the first summer that we were doing it. And then the second summer, this is a site that had an abandoned house next to it, and we were doing some guerrilla water capturing off that house. Well, in the second year, the house came down, so we lost our water source. And I do want to show you through our collaboration with the Plastic Lumber Store. This was kind of fun. This guy's really, really awesome. I took a sketch to him. I said, we need shade, we need seating, and we need water capture. And so I'm going to briefly share this. Let's see. Right there. Can you see that? You can see it? Okay. So we designed and built under the grant at this small community garden 2 water capture benches. And So this is, you'll see that both benches now have 3 55-gallon drums on them. This picture was taken before the second set of drums went onto the other bench. But the little roof captures water, and it's held, of course, in the barrels, and we can use it to water at that garden. So that was fun. It was a new thing. And actually, we're in a collaborative agreement with the Plastic Lumber Store, where he is creating the kits for this, and our little tiny community group gets a small slice of that as a fundraiser. I don't know how to stop screen sharing. Well, I don't know if I need to. We'll just keep going. So this community garden is still in development phase. We actually want to put in it a labyrinth, because we have a community member who designs and implements labyrinths, and we're going to be planting perennials around where the labyrinth goes. So, and we hopefully then will also have another group that'll put in one of the little tiny libraries. And so let's see, I'm gonna go to something else that we did with the Plastic Lumber Store. We have a garden at one of the Southside Elementaries that is a community garden, and it was implemented under the first Farm to School grant. But what happened is that it just was experiencing ongoing vandalism, which is also just another issue that we constantly deal with. It differs in each little tiny neighborhood. This, for some reason, was the target of someone who was an angry, upset person. And so this poor shed got vandalized so many times that the doors were eventually just not even on their hinges anymore. And so in cooperation with, under the Farm to School grant, and with some support from the Creating Healthy Communities grant through the health department, we were able to work with them and construct from scratch a brand new shed. We call it indestructible because it kind of is. The guy from the Plastic Lumber Store was really creative with us. This material that's on the outside is actually, he kind of turned us on to that, and it's what goes on the inside of semis. It's some kind of a fiberglass concoction and designed to withstand, being hit by forklifts. And so that the floor of this is plastic lumber. The frame of it is traditional lumber, wood, and then the covering is this fiberglass sheeting. And then we were able to secure a metal door. So we have been really happy with this. And the vandalism hasn't happened anymore. And so these are just some things that we've been faced with as part of working within communities that where people don't have enough resources and they're upset about it. So although there's also, what I've discovered is that, on the flip side of that, there's these amazing, wonderful people who come out and do this work and want to make change in their community. They just need the resources to be able to do that. The resources and the organizational capacity so that they can come out and do what needs to be done, which they do so readily.
Yeah, we are right here at time. And I want to make sure if anyone has any specific questions for you that we get to those, but it's certainly true. It seems like with all of these local food initiatives, it takes people like dedicated to making them happen. But I hate to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure we get to any questions that might be out there. Is there anything else though you'd like to say to kind of?
Are you talking to me or to the?
Yeah, to you, I don't know, wrap up or.
Just to wrap up, we were able to start apple slicing for the district, but COVID shut that down right as we were getting ready to start it. So that way, there. I don't know if you want me to talk more or not. We'll just we'll just stop and see.
So,
questions.
Sherry,
well,
just what's next? I would like to know kind of what's next, and then also what is going on in that neighborhood now since the Minnesota shooting.
Since what? Since
The shooting in Minnesota.
oh, you know, I've always admired the fact that Springfield, in fact, I was just part of the protest that happened just a few days ago. And Springfield lives in relative racial peace. There's no doubt that institutional racism has influenced the development of the city and what resources are available to African Americans. But what I have found is that the African American folks that I work with have a better sense of community than I have seen and experienced anywhere else. Everywhere else I've experienced when I've been around people who are primarily white, it's mostly an academic kind of a concept. These people have history, generational history in this area. They speak about it as we drive through town, and they really are dedicated to their neighborhood. And so there hasn't been negativity there. There's still that sense of we're just going to go forward and do what we need to do every day, which is keep our heads above water, keep our families fed. And yes, there are feelings, but there's not a tendency to act out about it. And again, if there's opportunity given and resources given to voice things, to voice opinions, it happens. But it's, you know, the protest in Springfield was the same as you're seeing everywhere else, where the protest that actually happened was a wonderful blend of races and ethnicities, and the stuff that happened after the protest was the problem, the people who just came in with undirected energy. So, yeah, so.
Will the gardens continue? Your funding is over now for the grant. What will happen next?
So SOUP is continuing its work. We developed some educational materials under the grant. Those are being used for first grade garden science in 2 of the Southside elementaries, as well as in 1 after school garden club, getting ready to go into the 2nd after school garden club on the South Side. And so we developed those, and now we just share them with the schools. So that's continuing. We also initiated doing neighborhood farm stands. We do 2 of them every summer, and work with a rural produce farmer. That's still going on. And we have a production garden that we operate where we grow some vegetables as well, on a beautiful green space that's in South Springfield. And so we as our small group and people who are gradually learning what we do and gradually joining us, we're just continuing the work. The school gardens, actually, we are going to have to plant the school gardens. I think there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3, 4 that we support. We lease a greenhouse on the north side of Springfield just because it's available. It's an old 1950s greenhouse, but it's a greenhouse. And so we raise seedlings there, and which we use to support our gardens, the school gardens and the community garden and the production garden. And we just have community volunteers who come in and like to be part of what's going on.
Sherry, you have a few questions here. We only have 10 minutes left until it's 7:30. And I did want to kind of get the, and I would love to get those questions to you, Sherry, and pass them on. But I before we finish, I did want to just have everyone have the chance to have some kind of discussion. I do see a general question here for all the speakers. Bob says emphasis has been on growing and creating more awareness of vegetables. Have any of you taken this further to the kitchen? That is attempting education as to how to use these vegetables and local foods in a recipe and how to prepare them for consumption. So I don't know, Lauren, if you want to kind of address that, and Donna and Michelle from Yellow Springs, and
You know, the first thing that popped into my mind was I keep thinking of all these project-based learning activities we have done in Yellow Springs that, like I said, had we put it under the umbrella of Farm to School or gotten some funding from the Farm to School grant, which I saw come across my desk, but I felt like, you know, we were just trying to get staff in the kitchen because we hired a new food service company. But I'm thinking of, we had kids make a cookbook. Now that was based more culturally, you know, it was the French class actually. And I'm thinking of some of the other activities that the kids have done in different grade levels around food and nutrition and with health and, you know, with science in various grade levels. I think we're like one step away from it. I think adding the food, you know, someone like maybe Michelle that would love to work with the kids and do some of that programming was kind of the missing piece why we haven't done some of these things, and then also just having that umbrella. And so I guess my big question from that is, how did these schools go from different activities to actually putting it under Farm to School? Was that because of, you know, someone coordinating that? Was that because of the Farm to School grant? I mean, I see so many elements here in Yellow Springs that are one step away from from almost some of the things I've seen in, you know, seedlings. So I guess I'm going to open that up to both Cincinnati and Benjamin Local. Did you guys seek out to do a Farm to School program, or were you like us and you had various things going on that then again got tied in under a grant? Or how did you move it to be a more full-fledged Farm to School program?
In our case, again, it came out of that the health district and their needs survey. So we had some things that we were doing, but it was just decided let's seek funding and let's maybe put all this together and grow. As far as the education with how to use the foods, I mentioned the tastings that the Family and Consumer Science teacher has done. Our food services department is really supportive. The director, for example, wanted to take any surplus stuff that could be, for example, frozen, so that it could be used when school resumed. So we haven't done some of that, but I know that we're going to, and it's just a matter of getting it planned and working it out. The support is there. We just need to make it happen. And
I just had one quick question about that. It's my understanding that if it is from a school, a curriculum activity that the kids are doing, then the food service company can use that, but they wouldn't be purchasing it from the kids. It could just be donated foods, and it has to be separated out as such.
And yeah, so the microgreens you saw, you know, those, let's say it's pizza day or taco day, those went down to the cafeteria and the kids just sprinkled those on, or maybe on salad day, sprinkled those things out when they came out of the line.
Sorry, Bruce. We always looked, you know, we forecasted on the menu. The kids could look at the days to maturity for the microgreens, and say we were having like a taco salad one day, we would make sure that we planted cilantro so that it would be ready as a micro cilantro to go onto that dish. You know, say it was going to be on the 21st, we would make sure that we planted that cilantro on, you know, the 28th, the month before, and it would be ready to go. And then the kids were deeply involved in the planning as well. And there's some math to do there, so that was fantastic too.
I love that.
Got you. Yeah, I just wanted to do that distinction, make sure I was clear on it, that when it's donated or from a child's kid's project, it could be used, which is a little bit different than from a vendor because they have a bunch of rules. So, and I just wanted to clarify that.
And we actually harvested in the kitchen right into the stainless steel hotel pans. And we had gloves. It had to be covered with plastic wrap. It couldn't be covered with foil. There were all these crazy guidelines that we had to follow, but our food service director signed off on it. She said, yeah, what you're doing is fine. She came through and walked me through it the first time, and we were good to go after that. Now the stuff that's coming in from outside, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. One thing at a time.
And so Lauren, for Cincinnati schools, has there been efforts to kind of work in the curriculum and in the local food initiative in the cafeteria?
With 63 buildings at central office, it's not managed as well as it is just in the schools. And so there's few schools that are doing things, but those schools are doing a lot. So we do have like those tower gardens in some schools. We have full on like raised bed gardens at some schools. And what they do with that produce, I'm not exactly sure if they send it home with those students who participated in it. It's not something that we can use in our food service program for the reasons that Donna listed. But there's a lot going on in the district, but it's not organized as like, this is what everyone's doing. It's managed at the schools under Farm to School. But we do have a chef in our department, Student Dining Services, and she will like work with some, like the department that works with like needy children, and then they'll come in like after school and do a cooking class, and then the chef will teach them how to use like fresh fruits and vegetables and recipes that they can then take home. And in some of the classes, the parents are invited to come to the after school class and learn how to cook and like have a experience with their children. So we do, when those opportunities arise, our department definitely partners with them. Not that that's necessarily Farm to School programming, but trying to get kids to eat produce.
I am seeing one question here, and we only have 3 minutes left until it's 7:30, but how about we, if each of you could answer this question, and then I think that will be it for tonight, but I don't think that this is the end of this conversation in general, but that last question, which would be great if all of you could address, is what are your biggest needs for the future of your programs, and can the state help? So do you all want to just kind of go in order that we started with? Lauren, if you want to start.
Yeah. As far as the state helping, like I know Kentucky, they provide additional funding if you use like produce from a local small farm. And then as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, Ohio doesn't offer that same type of program. So if there was additional funding for schools, if they purchase from a small local farm, if it does cost more to be able to get that like extra funding from the state so that it would help supplement and offset that higher cost, that would help some districts be able to use more.
Bruce, do you want to take a stab at that question?
Sure. Before I do, may I ask one? Will the link to this recording will you be sending that to us? Will we have that available?
Yeah, I will send out the link, and I know that there are some questions. Sherry, you had a few questions there at the end, and I will get that information. Sherry, if you'd like, I would love to email you those questions and get them to you and get them to our audience here as well. So I will work on a follow-up with the recording later on.
Great. I guess, my thoughts are that we need continued buy-in. We need to be able to develop what we're doing and just keep the interest sustained. and convince people that what we're doing is worthwhile. I noticed something about the curriculum. A lot of it has to do with teachers looking at the curriculum and being able to realize, doing this activity really addresses directly a curriculum issue. So, fourth grade life science, for example, has something to do with changes in the environment affecting organisms, some beneficially and some detrimentally. So just the whole concept of a pollinator plot talks about that. Pollinators are in danger, so it's necessary for humans to intervene and provide habitat. Ryan, if you want to add anything to.
I certainly think that we want to go away from outside source funding. There is a need within our faculty group among the facilitators to really bolster this program to the point where it's self-sustaining. We would like the kids to, under some model, whether it's a CSA or selling through a virtual online market in the wintertime, and then selling at the Logan County Farmers Market. Perhaps Saturdays are difficult, but we got a lot of our funding from the Mary Rutan Foundation. Mary Rutan Hospital has a Wednesday market that our kids can easily attend, with their produce. But that market, again, right now it's at a hospital. That thing is not going to be up and running for a while. We're starting back up with the Logan County Farmers Market on Saturday. And I got to tell you, as a vendor there and as a board member, it's going to look really weird. So moving forward, if we can maybe start the kids on a CSA and people can be picking up their packages, directly from the greenhouse, that might be a direction that, we have to be flexible and go in. But we have a need to be self-sustaining. We do not want to continue, I don't think, long-term to reach out for help.
All right, Donna, the biggest needs for the future of the Yellow Springs local food program.
I think our biggest needs would be to look district-wide where we want to go now that we have all these pieces. I think we have all of our pieces in place, and we need to organize under that umbrella. I think we're just right there ready to do that. As far as the state, I think once we're a little more organized as to what we want to do, looking at the Ohio Department of Education website, I noticed there's a little bit of a description, and then there's a lot about the census and some other things, but not a ton of guidance for schools and resources. So I think besides funding options, so you're not always looking for different fundings for little projects, maybe having a little more information for schools as far as resources on that website would help us, I think, to see where we're going and to help put that organization in place.
And Michelle, would you
have
like
anything? Yeah.
I can agree with Lauren that there needs to be some additional state funding for being able to use more local produce. I think that's a wonderful idea, because produce is a big part of a school's budget, for the food service budget. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of waste involved in it because it's something that is extremely perishable. So having those extra funding dollars would really help.
And Sherry, the biggest needs for the future of your programs, and is there room for the state to help?
I do think that for us, continuing to get support with things like Century 21 grants, that's where a lot of our tie-ins get to happen, where there's just I think in highly stressed districts, there's not a lot of space for intervention within the school day because they're so pressed for achievement. But it's within the context of some of the after-school programming, the Century 21 grants, where we can weave some of this stuff in. One very quick example is that our district doesn't do very many field trips. It's just an added expense. But I was talking to a Century 21 after school program director. She said, I'm encouraged under this grant to do field trips. And so I do think we do need some, at least in the higher stressed areas, we do need some of this outside influence. I do think that schools need to begin to make it a priority. We are in a district where the food service director was not necessarily very interested in what we were proposing. And so we really had to walk on eggshells as we did our work. I do think that if we can get more of an emphasis as we hire people and on the local food piece, I think that would be great. We need more farmers. You know, we got to feed a lot of mouths, and there's not enough local food out there for that. And I think lastly, when I have gone to farm to school conferences and I've learned the how these poor folks have to procure, and I forget what the process is called. I'm sure Michelle knows that really well. But when I found out how they had to ask for, meet the criteria for ordering this stuff, I was amazed. And I said to the people from the USDA, I said, are you guys doing anything to make this any easier? And they had done one tiny thing and thought they were done. And I feel like there needs to be a lot more flexibility and in that process for schools, and a lot more emphasis on being able to procure local food without going through the ringer.
All right, everybody, we're at 7:36. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time and participating tonight. And this won't be the end of this conversation, and there's much more to say. So thanks, everyone, and I will follow up soon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Have a good night.